The bad news for vaccine advocates came from the British government this morning, he writes. The Office of National Stats across the pond there in Merry, England, registered 17,381 deaths in England and Wales for the week that ended Friday, January 13th. That figure is about 20% more than the 5-year average, about 30% more than the longer-term averages for the year's second week. Only about 650 of the deaths had COVID as an underlying cause, so most of the excess death was not related to COVID. And most of the excess deaths are coming from highly mRNA vaccinated countries, or in the case of UK, parts of the UK. The British data confirms recent trends all over Western Europe, writes Berenson, including the Netherlands and Switzerland. Most wealthy countries that relied on mRNA COVID vaccine shots and boosters had non-COVID deaths well above normal in 2022. The problem has worsened in recent weeks in the wake of the fall Omicron booster campaigns. With the upward revisions, Europe will now probably report more excess deaths in 2022 than either 2020 before COVID vaccines were available or 2021 before boosters began in earnest. No connection has yet been proven, but there are certainly some questions that are raised by this data. And, of course, they'll be explored by dutiful academics on college campuses. These are incubators of thought and debate, right? I don't think so. Dr. Vinay Prasad is an epidemiologist and biostats professor at UC San Francisco. He writes at his Substack, because this is the only place they can have discussions, reporters and academics. If you have anything to say that doesn't comport with the received wisdom of the left, then you better have a Substack or a YouTube channel for as long as you can, because you're not going to be able to voice it on a college campus, and that's his point, Dr. Prasad's. He writes, while most of America has put COVID in the rearview mirror, that is not the case on college campuses. Perhaps any college students listening or parents of college students can attest to this. We have to mask to see patients, writes Dr. Prasad, even those who are hard of hearing and rely on reading lips. These policies are set without evidence by people who are not good at their job.
Oh, perfect.
Masking and classroom didactics remain through the roof. The one place on earth where people are trying to avoid the inevitable. Universities retain their title as the one place on earth with the least common sense.
So
Throughout all this, I cannot recall a single debate of any COVID-19 policy issue. We didn't have debates on masking. We didn't have debates about lockdowns. We didn't have debates about the school closure. We didn't have debates about masking 2-year-olds. We continue to have no debates. We have never debated if we should continue to mask in healthcare facilities. We don't debate if the annual bivalent booster mandate makes sense. We just signed the declination form pledging fealty to Lord Fauci or boost up. There is no forum for any discussion. No one houses any debates. And he basically points to two reasons he believes this is the case. One is the universities are primarily interested in cash. And as we talked about last hour on the topic of obesity, their universities are so reliant on their partnerships with biopharma companies, billing insurance companies. He writes, we continue to enter into agreements with pharma companies. There's no time to debate public policy. All these debates might put off a future pharmaceutical company suitor. Exactly. And then the more customary explanation, which doesn't mean it's inaccurate, is that the administrators are scared of the students and, this is a bit redundant, and completely lacking in courage. There's basically 1, 2, and 2A is why he thinks this is the case. And he also says it's going to get worse. The list of taboo topics will grow, and the last refuge of the academy will be academics with faculty appointments who run their own YouTube channels, Substack, or podcasts. It's up to them to keep the flame of knowledge, free inquiry, and debate alive as universities continue to prostitute themselves to pharma companies and capitulate to fear of student criticism. Pretty aggressive takedown from Dr. Vinay Prasad, and I couldn't agree more. We're happy now to be joined by Professor Mark Bauerlein, professor of English at Emory University, senior editor of First Things, author of The Dumbest Generation and The Dumbest Generation Grows Up. We're waiting for the third in the trilogy.
Yes.
The Dumbest Generation Won't
Goes
Leave
to
Us
work.
Alone. Yeah. Professor Bauerlein, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
I'm happy to talk again.
So, what about what Dr. Vinay Prasad had to say about the campus culture and why it is how it is?
Well, you know, the numbers show that really since the baby boomer generation went to college and then left, what happened in the 60s was, in order to keep up with this huge influx of young people who suddenly wanted to go to college, was all these new campuses opened. I mean, they needed warm bodies in classrooms to teach. They were tenuring people right and left, and they needed to meet the demand because the baby boomer generation was a huge cohort, and you simply didn't have room on the campuses. So things like, University of California added new campuses in Riverside and in Irvine. The SUNY system expanded. And it was wonderful. It was boom times for the academy. And then the boomers passed through, and the next cohort wasn't that big, Generation X. And that turned the relationship around. Suddenly, it was more a buyer's market. The student, young people, they could sort of pick and choose campuses they wanted to go from, and campuses needed students. And so they changed to do things like, let's build an amazing gym in order to recruit those kids. Let's lower the general ed requirements so kids don't have to take all those courses if they really aren't interested. They can just go straight into business. They don't need to learn any U.S. history or learn to write. And this has just expanded into the coddling, infantilization, the treatment of 19-year-olds in America in the way that 12-year-olds used to be taught. And the universities feel we've got to do that, because if a lot of these liberal arts colleges especially are operating very close to bankruptcy, and if they lose, say, 20 students in the next years entering class, that's a lot of money for them. And remember, with tuition costs, going up and up and up, they really need those kids to be happy. A kid who comes in freshman year and then drops out, oh man, we're looking at a loss of $200,000 on the tuition stream from some of these kids. So it really turns into let's make this an elementary schoolyard and take care of these kids. So be afraid, we're here for you. We're going to take care of everyone. It's really about numbers, recruitment, and what you said, keeping kids happy, telling the parents, safe. This is a safe space in all ways, not just emotionally and the identities and everything, but a place for your health as well. And that's the most important thing.
Well, they have these beautiful food courts now and sleek new dorms. I mean, because I'm college shopping with my youngest. My oldest goes to Georgia Tech, and we get, emails once a week saying, if your son is struggling or son or daughter, go to, we're here for them. We can help them, which is fine. But do you think the professors are leaning on the grades and the grading process to keep them in school and to keep us paying their tuition?
The numbers on the grades are, in 1960, the most common grade on a college campus was a C. That was an average grade, and it was the most popular one. You know what I'm going to say. Today, about 45% of all grades on campus are A grades. Nearly the kids get A's in their classes, and it's really a deal. And here's the deal. It says, look, you guys, I've got a little conference paper to write. I want to be in my office, have my quiet time. Don't push too hard, and all of you will get a B or an A. And the students turn around and say, good deal. We like that. The tuition gets paid. The degrees get awarded. The parents are happy. The wheels keep turning. That's the deal. on the campuses now.
Do you agree with Vinay Prasad that it's going to continue to go in this direction because that's where the money is, and and where are the examples, where are the green shoots that suggest there's going to be any pushback to this model?
I just don't see any pushback because what's the reward of the pushback? What's it going to get you to be a teacher who gives lower grades because you want to hold the line? You want to push the students harder. I mean, we had a case at NYU last year. A teacher got removed from a classroom, even though he'd been there a long time teaching organic chemistry, because the students revolted because they said, this class, he's given too many low grades. Well, he's been doing this for decades. He was a very good teacher. And organic chemistry is a filtering class for med school.
Right.
You want students who would ordinarily get a D. You want them going into med school and getting. And by the way, a lot of med schools, the grade inflation there has happened by changing the system to pass-fail grades, and you could take a course and retake it if you've failed it. And once you pass it, all your fails here. So it only looks like you once passed it.
And right, and it's right. That's why it's just like the admonition is don't go to a doctor that's under 45 years old, or do so at your own risk. But the same would go for debate on campus too. These intellectual repositories of discussion and thoughtfulness, these free marketplaces of ideas. Well, if everybody just shuts up, then there's peace on campus, and the checks get cut coming in and going out.
We need to be very sensitive. We need to be thoughtful, because remember the trauma that a lot of these kids feel when you use the wrong pronoun.
Oh, yeah.
I want you to remember what a microaggression can do to a delicate 19-year-old soul. It could be microscopic, but we have to understand the depth of pain a lot of these people have suffered. And certain identities live every day with discrimination. And the college campus is going to be a place where we're all inclusive. Everyone is tolerant. It's a happy diversity here on our campus. Just look at those promotional materials, those pictures of those smiling faces and all these Benetton layouts. And this is all part of, again, the way the system works. And to change this system, the money is big time. Harvard has a $45 billion endowment.
Right.
And careers, there's a whole industry now devoted to this DEI sensitivity. So people occupy these offices who are themselves control freaks. They're suspicious people. I mean, imagine what personality you have to hold a diversity orientation seminar and walk into the room of 30 people and look around and think to yourself, there's some people in this room with some very bad thoughts, bad attitudes in their heads, and I'm going to root them out. Well, what kind of personality does it take to think this way?
It's so funny that the language these people talk like hippies and they act like Sicilian mob bosses, right? It's all the flowery language, and then it is clip that guy and clip that guy.
Tolerance, diversity, inclusion, they sound so good. But so why is it that places that highlight these values the most are places where people are nervous? They worry about the words that they might use. The professor who's taught a book for 20 years suddenly thinks, wait a minute, Huck Finn, it got some bad words in it. I can't teach that book anymore. The atmosphere for a lot. I mean, my liberal colleagues on campus, most of them are good people, and they're nervous themselves. They worry because they just want to teach their classes and go home and live their lives. But now it's such a heated atmosphere I mean, when you've got Stanford University issuing a list of words that one is not allowed to use
Right.
anymore on campus, I mean, there goes the free speech movement, right? I thought that was what the left was all about. Let it all hang out. Do your own thing. No.
He is Professor Mark Bauerlein, professor of English at Emory University, senior editor at First Things, author of both The Dumbest Generation and The Dumbest Generation Grows Up and Takes Over, apparently. Professor Bauerlein, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Are you tired of crime on the rampage in Chicago? Is your heart broken that Chicago public schools fail 90% of minority students to achieve